All right, you guys, I am very excited to be joined by my friend Eileen. And I've been wanting to bring Eileen before you here on this show for a long time because what she speaks about is something that I'm personally working on and looking to achieve. And all you guys know, I share all the behind the scenes of the things I'm trying to do. But it's very, very important for all of us. And that is using our voice in speaking to create change for other people, to serve other people, to help other people. And the approach that Eileen uses as she does this is so genuine. It's so absorbable. It's so, when you're sitting in the audience and Eileen's speaking, she moves you to action and levels up your IQ and helps you move in a way that maybe you didn't necessarily have what it took to move before then. And so that's why I'm really excited to have her on the podcast. So welcome to the Sweet Life Podcast, Eileen. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks, April. So pumped to be here. Yeah.
I know. Really, really exciting. So today we're talking about how to use your voice to become known, to establish thought leadership, and how to do that through speaking, how to expand your work through speaking. Can you give a little bit of a background story about how you got here, why you are the bee's knees of teaching people how to do this now? I hold up your book. So we'll put it back in hold up Eileen's book. I have a copy too sitting here, but there you go. How to Become a $1 Million Speaker. There you go. It's awesome. All right. So share with our listeners how you got here and why this is so important in your business and how you help others.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks again, April. This is so cool getting to hang. So I got into helping people become $1 million speakers just like 2.5 years ago. So I actually was in ministry for 18 years. I was a pastor. So I was a speaker, but I didn't really I identified more with being a pastor and making no money particularly. I was in nonprofit ministry. My husband is actually an Uber driver to support us in our nonprofit salary, which is literally nonprofit. But it was great because we loved serving people. So many of our friends that we've gotten to meet over the years are people that really want to make an impact, like a legitimate, I really want to leave this planet changing as many lives as possible. And that's where I was like, but then I found out through coming to a conference called Funnel Hacking Live that I could not only have a huge impact, but I could also make money as a speaker. So at that conference is where I got the strategy for how to do that. And in kind of less than a couple of years, we started doing multiple millions of dollars, and now our clients do multiple millions of dollars using speaking as the primary way to get their voice and their message out to literally as many people as possible, but at the same time, massive profit. So that's what my passion is now, is releasing people into their calling. So if you're listening, if you've felt that thing, you feel it's almost an uncomfortability inside where you can't, almost like you're like, I have to get this out. I have to get this message out. I have to get this book out. I have to get this story out. So we love to help people craft their signature message, which is what I'd love to do with you in the next couple of minutes.
I love that.
By crafting their signature message and their signature story, it can transform the audience while you give it. So it's just incredibly fulfilling work, not scary at all. To see we love to see table rushes. At the end of our signature message, we can cause a table rush to happen where people, now they're taking that next step with you and in your business. And it's just kind of like, I laid down last night and I was like, I can't believe this is my life now. Like it really wasn't that long. Sometimes I tell my friend Russell, I was like, I was Uber driving like my husband was Uber driving, it was like 2.5 years ago.
Right.
Like that was like not that, now we're in this like huge mansion. It's like, I don't know, $1.5 million. I never thought I could do something like that. So it's just kind of crazy town, April, the opportunity that is there for somebody who wants to step forward and use their voice.
Told you guys. I'm sure many of you already know Eileen. If you don't, well, now you've met, and now you know why I love her. So for those of you who are listening and you have been in the online coaching and consulting space, and you've been doing the rat race, and you've been chasing the things, and you've been trying to do all the things to get your work to the surface, to get the transformation that you deliver to your clients to the surface, and you have not really been able to do it. You may be getting tired. Most of our listeners have been in business for a really long time, and you guys are like the best kept secret, and you may be getting tired. Look at what Eileen just said to you. Look at this case study. It's been 2 years. 2 years ago, the rest of us in this space were still using these old tactics, and here comes Eileen, these fresh eyes, and she just goes for it because she sees this pathway that's laid out before her. So it's really important that I really want you, like I am here, taking notes. You guys, I have all my notes here, as you know I do, and we have guests on this show, that to stop for a second wherever you are, or pause this episode, or make sure you come back and listen to it, because the steps we're going to talk about here are really, really powerful, and these are proven. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm very excited about this. So as people are considering, what the heck am I going to say? Like, I think I know what I'm going to do, or why does anybody care what I have to say? I just want them to buy my program or buy my product or whatever. You know what I mean? Why do they need to know me? How do I present myself in a way that I'm relatable? Help our listeners go through that process of crafting that communication strategy.
So good, 100%. So the big thing is kind of recognizing first, like, your story is so powerful. Like, if you're listening to this, like the story of how you birthed the company that you have, or created the product, or the certification, or the coaching program, like the story surrounding the origin story is like, is very, very important. And many people, just after hearing that story, normally they're just like, oh my gosh, I want that. I want that. That's like how it was when I first met April. I was like, I want to know all the things that April knows, and I want to buy all the things that April has. Like, you know what I'm saying? So every one of you, so it's kind of recognizing, how do I articulate and unpack that story? So my favorite organization to study this for is actually Pixar, because Pixar, every Pixar movie, I have little kids, but every movie they release is like a blockbuster, and they just crush this formula for a story. So as I go through this formula, think about your story, because this is the nucleus of your signature message, is what I'm about to show you right now. The nucleus is your story, okay? And what's cool about the way I'm going to teach it is, what you're going to do as you tell your story is, as you tell your story, the audience is going to see themselves inside your story. Because the purpose of when you're speaking to an audience is not to share, just not to talk about yourself, right? It's to talk about their story. Right. So, you know that feeling when you're in a movie, a really good one, and you're just lost? Like, and you forget that you're in this like dark room with other people, or you're just literally captivated the entire time. If you do this, like I'll show you here, this is where the audience will get like swept up into, as you're sharing your story, they're going to be like having their own internal movie and epiphany happening, which is what causes such an emotional swell, which I'll teach you in this training too. It causes such a, almost the audience starts, when I'm speaking, they start erupting emotionally. Like the other day, April, I was at this biggest conference, and in 8 minutes, I shared a short story. The audience started jumping up on their feet. First, it was a couple trickle, and then there was a couple little pocket, and then everyone, like, it actually got, I got out of control. Like, actually, so the audience starts shouting back at me, like a really cool church service, and I had a moment where I was like, I literally don't know what to do right now.
Like, you're turning around going, is there something behind me that I don't...
It was so, but like if you can, it's the power of a story, the power of your story. Your story has all the ingredients to impact people in a sniper way. So let's dive in. Okay.
Yeah. So, and yes, you're right. I've been. Yeah.
Okay. So I have this awesome glare. So I'm going to say it out loud. So the Pixar method is, what was the problem that you had? Like, what was the problem, the drama? What was the challenge you were facing? So as an example, my challenge was I was in a small 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids and my husband's Uber driving to support us. Okay. So what was the problem? That was my problem. And how did it make you feel? So as an example, so I kind of use these as like prompts. So some people like pause me and like, so what was the problem? When you're describing the problem, you want to make it like a scene. Like I was here in this place doing this thing. And I felt like I was a total failure and I was never going to figure this out.
Wow.
And I felt terrified. Here's another, so you want to use emotional. I felt terrified that my 3 kids would grow up in an apartment without a home and without grass. Like I can still think about how frightening that was for me, April. Like I was like, oh my gosh, they're never going to be like able to play lacrosse out front, or like they're going to grow up in this tiny apartment.
Right.
And I will also go insane because they're so loud and like, it's like,
right.
Anyway, so the scene, what was the problem? What was the scene? How did you feel?
All right. So you guys, be thinking about, as Eileen's guiding us through this, we're using this as a workshop like we do here on this show. And so really be saying it out loud if you're on the subway or you're driving your car, or you're in the carpool lane, wherever you are, you're listening to this. If you're at the gym, picture this, take a moment. And so we can actually do this work together here on this show as Eileen's guiding us.
Yeah. So fun to think about. Like, what was the problem? Like, what was the scene? And then how do you feel? And then what is the story of the solution? So there's a solution that you found, and describe what that looked like. Many times people have sometimes an aha moment when they're reading something, or sometimes it's perhaps something a mentor said, or maybe you figured out like a system and you were like, oh my gosh, like if I just did this and this and this. So maybe sometimes it's like a guide or a mentor showed you, but maybe you just like stumbled across something happened. So you want to think back, like, what happened? Like, I walked into Funnel Hacking Live and I heard Russell talk about how I could impact the world and make money. And he taught me at the event how to make an offer, how to have like something I could sell. And I was like, what in the what? I was like, I never thought, I don't know why that had never crossed my mind, but it hadn't. So I walked out and I was like, oh my gosh, like I can make money as like a coach. Like so what happened for you though? That was like the pivotal moment. Okay, so there's a solution that you found. So problem, solution. And then you kind of want to talk about it as like, almost like this, like, and then one day, or so, like suddenly, but then I found a coach or a mentor and he said, so you want to describe it almost similarly like a scene. Because people think in pictures, right? So they're thinking, okay, so there's a solution. And now, I'm so excited. I have so much. Okay, so now after the solution, then you're going to do the payoff.
Okay.
Now the payoff is what showed up for you after you implemented the solution. It's like, and then I did this, and you want to describe it like first outwardly, outward payoff. So it could look like, and then I set up the system, like April told me this, and I set up the system, and suddenly I'm working half as much, making 3 times as more.
So you want to focus on the deliverables, like the tangible deliverables of that solution. I have my mic muted while you're talking because my dogs are so excited about this. They're barking. So hearing Eileen talk. The tangible solutions is next. So that payoff, first you're saying we talk about those tangible solutions that people can measure, and they can be like, oh my gosh, I only did this or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good. And then, and so kind of like, so what I like to say is like, what showed up for you in your outward outward world? Like, did your business start experiencing some breakthroughs? Maybe it's, some people I work with have a relationship offer and they like found the love of their life, or, maybe their harmony in their home. It could look like their blood pressure, whatever the results look like, right?
Right.
And then so immediately right there, the audience is like, whoa.
I want that.
Now that you've actually created desire for the solution inadvertently, but then talk about the payoff that shows up internally. So this would be like the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. This is like for real people, hero's journey for like real people. Payoff. Like, so did you have more peace? I remember, April, the day that somebody bought my first coaching program. I think I sold it for like $297. And I almost fell off my chair. I'm not kidding. I can still remember it. I was like, she was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like,
wait, what? What did you just say? You are? Are you sure?
It was like the I don't know, just the mind shift that somebody was going to pay me money for the knowledge that was in my head. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, so now it's the outward payoff, this incredible sense of peace came over me. Because now I felt like I had found a system. Like a thing that I could rely on. I could do it again. Right. And bring income in for my family. So this incredible peace, so this internal payoff could be incredible confidence, incredible sense of command, authority. It could be a number of emotional, like the internal result that you started experiencing. And that actually is what the audience wants more than the external payoff. Right. We actually want that more. So when you start talking about that, you're increasing the temperature of desire. Let me bounce that back to you, April, and then I'll talk about how to get the crowd pumped.
Yeah. This is so good. The first thing I was actually thinking about as you were saying it, because this is something, as you know, I've been working on for a long time, is that when people hear signature talk, signature story, sometimes they think that has to cover a longer period of time. But as you were going through this framework here, which is genius, is amazing. You're genius, as you know. I love you so much. I'm going through and saying, wow, I could craft this whole entire story for just one solution that's a really powerful solution. And I'm super honest, where I feel like one of the areas that I have my signature talks and I speak, but when we're talking about really creating change through a powerful signature talk that you can become known for, like the series of podcast episodes we're doing here right now, I'm realizing for myself, and hopefully you guys who are listening can take this from me, that it doesn't have to be my story since I was 13. We can talk about what just happened in a moment, like Eileen shared, of where she was before this event that happened and where she is now. And I think personally for me, I've been trying to fit too darn much in it. And as you're saying this, it would be like Pixar covering all of the stories of all of the characters of all of their journeys, rather than one little dude who had a problem and he created this solution in one movie. That's what I'm getting from this, is a pure simplification of understanding that you guys, you don't have to share everything in a bag of chips, right? We can share one thing about one problem, about one solution, as long as it relates to the product and program you're selling, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm pulling from this right now. I'm saying, wow, I think I've overcrowded my signature talk probably for years.
Wow. It's so, and you got, simple, right? And it's amazing how a quick story, now you can take the story and make it short and make it long, but the streamlined method of how Pixar does it starts to really engage the audience at all levels, because now they're seeing, I'll show you how to get them to see their story inside of it, but it's very clear, and the more important thing is it's created internal desire and what we like buyer's momentum for what you're going to offer.
Amazing. I absolutely love this. Okay, so we have this framework. Obviously, this will all be in the show notes for you guys as well, and hit replay and play it in slow motion and all the stuff. So now what do we do next?
Okay,
We've crafted the story. Where do we go?
Tell me how much time I have, April, because I can go.
As I'm sitting here pondering. So the next generation here of the Sweet Life podcast, we're on year number 6 here with this show. We're trying to do shorter episodes, but I don't want to cut you off. I'd be crazy to cut you off. So if we need to turn this into a part 1 and part 2, these are the things we do on the fly, guys, while we're recording with amazing people like Eileen. You just do your thing and pour into us, and we might break this up into 2 episodes. Okay. We'll see how it goes.
Okay,
you lead the way.
This will be worth it. This will be worth, I promise. So
I already know it, so go for it. Thank you.
So say you've got your signature message. Now, there's obviously, when I'm teaching my students, so the crash course, there's going to be an intro. Then there's going to be your story, which comprises of the problem, the solution, and the payoff. And then there's going to be what we call your invitation. So without going too deep, there is like a way to begin and a way to end this message. But let me give you the meat of how to make the crowd super engaged, and then if I have time, I'll do like how to start and how to end. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Awesome.
So, okay, my business partner and I studied over 500 hours of the best speakers that have existed throughout all time. JFK, Dr. Martin Luther King. We've studied mega pastors who get people voluntarily showing up every week. And get the crowd crazy excited. Now, I will give this to you guys free. This book free. It goes much deeper. It'll be a digital ebook, but it'll be worth going into these principles, because if you do them like these famous speakers, you will be invited on the biggest stages on the internet and in the world. And I've had the privilege of being a part of some of them, and I know you will too. So here is the framework.
Huge
that we
gift.
discovered.
Thank you.
So as we watched all these videos, we found that these speakers were doing a pattern.
Okay. Wow.
And the pattern, when we were like, are they doing this? We're like, oh my gosh, they're all doing the same speaking framework pattern. And as they do it, the audience starts getting like just more and more engaged. So much so that some of the audiences are like talking back to the speaker. You know, it's getting like kind of like excited. It's not, if you've ever been to like a Tony Robbins thing, you see how it's like, it's not quiet anymore. It's like, well, we're like having a lot of fun.
Right.
My business partner likes to call it like black church, white church. Like if you've ever been to a white church, like I have, and if you've ever been to a black church, which is, I actually grew up in a black church, so it's like so much more fun.
It's
like,
so much more fun.
So much more fun. So here is the framework, so you can implement it inside your signature message. All right.
So excited.
So when you're telling your story, and when you're speaking in front of podcasts or big crowds, or even if you're talking to a person, one other person, consider using some of these techniques. So let's go.
Let's go.
Okay. The framework starts first in first person. I was here, I was in this place, and I was doing this thing. You're in first person. Okay? Very quickly, within maybe 60 seconds or less, you want to switch in your story to you. You, second person. Let me give you an example. I was in this apartment. I had 3 small kids. I felt overwhelmed and like I was never going to figure out how to make money, how to ever buy a house, how to ever have my dreams. Have you ever been in a place where life was turning out differently than you thought it was going to turn out? Have you ever experienced overwhelming disappointment at where you are? Like you're older than you thought you would be, you thought you'd achieve more dreams, more goals by now, and there's kind of a quiet desperation simmering inside of you that makes you feel like you barely want to get out of bed in the morning, because why?
Right.
So you're first person, and then you're into you. Have you ever, I'm immediately now, because you're not there for you, right? You're not there to tell your story. You're there to tell their story. Have you ever felt like, you can do, sometimes they call it the rule of 3 in speaking. So have you ever felt like this and felt like this and felt like this? And the minute you do that, watch this. When you do it, you'll see the audience leans in.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm sitting here even as you're saying it, responding to even you teaching us how to do this. And I know that what you're doing.
Yeah, you know what I'm doing. Yeah.
I'm like,
yes. And now that you know, you'll see what everybody else is doing too when you see them speak. So a lot, like professionals, they know how to do this. So, and so you'll actually, what you will see as well is the audience will start nodding their head. They'll start out loud, effortlessly. They'll start going, It'll be a verbal. Now, in contrast, speakers who don't know how to do this, it's quiet.
Yeah.
And people start tuning out. You know what I'm talking about? Like, have you ever seen a boring speaker?
Right. Yes. Yes. And I fear, Lord, please help me not be that speaker when I'm on stage, is what I say.
My lips to your ears. Exactly. So, I to you, have you ever, here's another prompt. You know when you're in a place and you've tried everything the gurus told you to do. You've tried this, you've tried that, and it's not working. So have you ever, and you know when you is the unlock for the audience to go into the movie. So cool. So it goes I.
Okay.
To you. So important. Just do that. If you're listening, you'll be a better speaker.
Right.
Next level, you point. You point. Extract a lesson from the story that they can apply. Now, let me give you some examples of this. The point doesn't need to rhyme, doesn't need to be fancy pants. What it needs to do is to introduce almost a contrarian idea or something for them to think about. Okay,
Got
let
it.
me give you some examples. So, you point. Speakers don't have, they're not clear in what they're trying to say. And if you just think about your problem, okay, you could introduce a point such as, I didn't know that, let me hold on, pause, let me go. I didn't know that, I'm going to do a different point. I didn't know that doing everything the system would tell me to do, going to school, going to college, and getting a job, I didn't know that pathway wouldn't lead to wealth. That wasn't as good. So I'm like a little bit.
No, that's a great one though. No. Yeah, absolutely.
Just think about an idea. Think about an idea for your problem that you could present as I didn't know that this. And so it could be a lesson that they could apply. Let's think about another lesson perhaps that you could be having in your problem. Perhaps your problem is, I didn't know that eating keto would cause me to hold on to weight, not to release weight. Now I don't even know anything about keto. I'm just making stuff up. I didn't know this, and there's a point inside the problem. Okay. You point. It doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be something where the audience will go,
So we want them to rethink. We want them to rethink something that they have thought is what I'm getting from what you're saying. We want them to rethink a problem based on the story and your journey of what's happened.
Yep. Just kind of a clear one sentence articulating perhaps a false limiting belief that you had that they maybe haven't thought about recently. Okay. And another bit that I have, one of my points is, I thought that working hard equaled wealth. And I didn't realize that it's not about working harder, it's about working higher. And then I go and explain, but that's my point in that session. So it's I didn't realize, clear point. When you have a clear point inside your story, the audience will most likely write it down. You'll see them start writing it down. Now they're in the movie. They're like, oh my gosh, I think that. I believe that.
Right. I have a million things flying through my head right now. Okay. Yes. This is this is so good. So, people could say, I didn't know that even if after I did all the social media strategy and all of the things that it actually wouldn't equal dollars in my pocket. But then I realized that doing this one thing was what I really needed. And I think that might apply to a lot of our listeners. Or I didn't know that if I just launched an online course like everybody else, that they wouldn't come. I realized that I needed to, or wanted to do this. And once I learned this, or once I did this, it was the difference. Granted, I'm falling all over my words, and I'm taking way too many words in one point.
I know I'm kind of thinking of stuff off the cuff too, but that's the idea though. Is like, what's like a clear one-liner lesson from what you were experiencing?
Right.
Problem.
Right.
Most likely they're thinking that same thing. It's like, wait, I thought that working hard equals wealth. Like, what are you saying? What?
Right.
So it creates intrigue, curiosity. In fact, the best speaker that I've studied in making a clear point is Joel Osteen.
Oh yeah. Who was scared to death to speak in the beginning. Yeah.
So he just states a point. So everyone here, you don't be like super fancy pants. It doesn't need to rhyme. Just state a one-liner that was something you were thinking, and it's clear from your story. Okay?
Got it. Yes.
You point. Now, this is my favorite part. I'll go quick. You point. You can go back into IU. Sometimes it's a little bit of a dance. So there I was in the apartment. Da, 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 da. So we call that the IU dance. But if we go straight through the framework, you point they. They is the enemy. Now let me articulate. There's a quote from Winston Churchill that said, "Nothing unites people more than having a common enemy."
Yes.
Okay. So here's the moment that you can get the crowd the most engaged. Because if you can identify an enemy that's also their enemy, bring their awareness to the enemy and be like, everything in your life that's gone wrong has been kind of like a result of this enemy. Like, this is actually who you're actually fighting. You're not fighting yourself, and you're not fighting your mom and dad. You're not fighting these phantom. Like, this is actually is an enemy set against you. Okay, and when that happens, there's something inside of us as humans and men and women. We want to fight. Mm-hmm. We want to fight, and we want to win. So
we do.
So we're like think about just football and sports. It's like we're programmed to be like us v them, us versus them. So give your audience someone to fight. Wow. Now, what two things will happen here? High emotion, sometimes anger, which is really great. Like, if you can get the crowd in a good way. I'll show you. Get the crowd angry in a good way. Now they're united against this enemy, and now the crowd is united in and amongst themselves. So now they're like, the crowd now becomes a unified tribe. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, this is the best part when you can do this in the audience. So an enemy. So it's a they. So you point they. They. So, all right, this is so fun, because what you want to be thinking here is like, who was or is your they? Let me give you some examples. Yeah. When I was speaking at FHL a couple of years ago, I did a they, which was the enemy in your mind. Now, in church, they use the devil a lot. So I was kind of playing off this idea, because it's an external character that I was like, some people call it the devil, some people call it Satan, some people call it the adversary. I don't care what you call it. How many of you, okay, now back to you, have heard a voice in your mind that pulls you back from what you know that you are called to create? How many of you have had that? How many of you have felt resistance to publishing what you know you're born to publish? How many of you had that? And I'm going back to you. You hear me going back into you? And then I go one more. So now I'm doing what's called the rule of three. How many of you have felt, I don't know what I said, I don't know, just something pulling you back from the calling that you are meant to step into. How many of you ever heard a voice like this? See, now I'm doing crowd. Now I'll show you crowd engagement. And by that time, the audience, every time I'm saying that, is seeing them in the movie. They're like, wait, there's an enemy in my thoughts. Okay. Now they're starting to get like white hot and heated, and this is what I want you guys to do. I make a they. Another speech I did, I was like, the system told you.
Right.
Go to school, go to college, get a job, and you'll be wealthy.
Right.
How many of you grew up hearing that lie? So now I'm putting words in the enemy's mouth. Okay. I hope this is making sense.
This makes perfect sense.
Okay, all right. So then to cap it all off, but the they is my favorite part, and that's where you can get them on their feet, and like they're just like, what? Okay, and so you've got this they, and then in the middle of the they, drop a soundbite. So in the middle, so you got the they, they're freaking out. They're like, I am Wonder Woman, and I am about to take the enemy down. That's like how your audience is feeling right there. And you're like, take them down.
Yeah.
Like, go. Like, now you're just like, they're in their story, they're in their movie, and they are at war with this enemy, and you're just like what? The guy in the back. Go.
Yeah.
Exactly, go.
Just go.
So then so in the middle of this white hot emotional heat, if you drop a soundbite, which is like a point, but it rhymes. Okay. They will go
crazy, like bananas.
Like running around, like screaming, like what? Like, say that again. You know, they're writing it down as fast, they're tweeting it out. Like, it's like taking screenshots of the thing. It's like this is what the pattern was doing. All these speakers were doing this pattern in these speeches, and you're just like, what? So this is it. So then people are like, oh my gosh, how do I make a soundbite? And I'm like, okay. You're like, oh my gosh. So I have a favorite secret cool website that musicians use, and it's called rhymezone.com. And take some of your ideas, your points, things you say, go in there, have some fun with some alliteration. I'll give you an example of one of mine. I actually love to do this ninja thing. Now you guys know all my secrets.
All of your secrets.
It's called a soundbite stack. So a soundbite stack is like where you use a quote of a famous person, another quote from a famous person, and then you drop your quote. Soundbite.
Oh, yeah. That's so good.
So let's see. One soundbite stack is, so I'll say something about like W. Clement Stone. I'm like, because W. Clement Stone is the number one enemy of wealth. I have this whole bit, and then I say, W. Clement Stone understood the number one enemy of wealth isn't mindset, it's delay. How many of you have been delayed? You see I'm going back into the, how many of you have been delaying some things in your life? Napoleon Hill says it like this, that successful people make decisions quickly and change their mind slowly. Unsuccessful people make decisions slowly and change their mind often and quickly. I like to say it like this. Procrastination is the assassination of your destination. And when I do that, then it's like, it's like boom, boom, boom. And then, so soundbite stack, but you can come up with your own soundbites. It's super fun. Think of yourself like a rapper or a songwriter or someone very creative. And you'll see that the great speakers, it's more like music. So if you'll do your signature story using this speaking framework, I guarantee, I could like bet money on it. People will come up to you and be like, that message changed my life.
Wow. This podcast is going to change people's lives and businesses. So I have questions. So first, the delivering the framework, and then you usually go over the I, you, them, it at the end. That's when after the entire signature framework that you go through.
Well, what I'll do is I'll have people introduce the message, and then while they're telling their story, their problem, solution, payoff, they do it in this way.
Got it. The
This is
I,
kind
you,
of like
they
a
sound
way to always talk, or a way
Yeah.
to always tell a story, or a way to just communicate that's very helpful for people because
Eileen.
it's clear. You're using a speaking technique called just high contrast when you have the enemy. Now they're like, they do it this way, but we do it like this. So you're employing very helpful communication success habits when you talk like this. So we'll have them tell their story like that. Now we do a lot of role playing on like giving feedback because
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little, right.
This whole entire process, first of all, thank you for taking the time to study all the people that you have done, and then be so giving in everything that you do, giving away the book for free. You guys, I have read this, is really incredible. And in speaking and teaching us so freely, and then obviously being here on the show, just pouring into us. We're gonna turn this into 2 podcast episodes. This is so good. Your ability to see this pattern and understand this, and then turn around and teach it, is an incredible gift. So
thanks.
thank you for paying attention to your gift and then turning around and teaching it to us. I think that there are so many different ways to give a talk and give a teaching, but what you're teaching us is how to move people. And that is, I believe, the missing component that many of our listeners have had in their becoming known strategy. And even you guys, it doesn't have to be 1 million people that you're known with. It can be 100 people that know you, and you change their lives. This strategy that you talked about, this way of storytelling, truly moves people to action. And what is so powerful about the way that you teach this, and all of your ninja skills that you do with your clients, is that it really does remove the speaker from being the spotlight. And like I said in the beginning, I think there's a lot of people that are hesitant to step into the quote unquote spotlight because they don't want to be in the spotlight. They want their methodology or their change or whatever transformation they deliver to be the highlight. They don't want to be that front person, but they do want to create change. And so there's been some hesitation, I know, and I've talked to a lot of clients where there has been a significant level of hesitation because they want to figure out another way to do it without having it for them to be the one standing up there. What would you say to those people who are, where they know, they feel that pull? We talked about it. You teach on it. You speak on it, that know that they are supposed to do this and their feet are stuck in cement. What would you say to that person who's
really
listening?
Cool. Yeah, I love that. Well, I think one thought that can be incredibly motivating and incredibly energizing, making you want to do this more, or speak on stages and podcasts and do all this stuff, is thinking about all of the people that don't know what you know.
Right.
They don't know the tips. Like, they don't have the steps. They don't know the information. And because they don't have that information, they, to some degree, are experiencing what the Bible talks about, like, which is people perish for the lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So it means like there's some part of their life that isn't in fullness, isn't in abundance, isn't in the kind of increase that they could be experiencing if they just knew like 1 or 2 things that you know. And we discount and discredit our personal story because it's so unique to us. We're like, yeah, like, this is my thing. I don't even know if this would like even really help anybody. But when you start opening your mouth and being vulnerable and taking that courageous step forward, and you start seeing that your story is the linchpin for thousands, maybe if not millions of people to experience greatness, which is kind of crazy. I mean, it's not like, not to mention like heaviness or like, there's a heaviness to that, but it's like an excitement. One person said it to me like this, and I'll toss it back to you, April. They said, stop focusing on you and what what you keeping your story quiet. They said, start focusing on the prison that everyone else is in, tormented because they haven't heard what you know.
Right.
So it's that calling toward contribution that I feel can unlock for people. Like, just people need they need what you have. They need your story, and that's it can be just like a never-ending, amazing addiction. Is just people coming up to you, being like, "Thank you for that message. Thank you for changing my life." That's what happens when you decide to be a speaker.
Wow! There's so many responses I want to say right now. I think that it's important for our listeners, again, because I unpack everything. This show is not about me at all. But I want to share with you guys something that happened to me in this case. And actually, it was at a funnel hacking live. And I mean, all transparency, I don't even use ClickFunnels. Sorry, Russell. I mean, I just don't. I just go, and my friends are there. You're there. You know, it's great leadership. I love learning there. It's just an amazing place to be. Anyways, my first year there was only a couple years ago. 2 years ago, I think it was. You were speaking, and I remember being there in the audience. I was actually standing behind you, I think, and Garrett White was speaking.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was like going to church in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I remember in that moment hearing that you have to stop keeping it to yourself. And it was such a moving event. I was actually bawling, crying, you guys, in this conference around people I didn't even really know.
Yeah.
Actually, I hardly knew any of them. And I was just this bawling, crying, hot mess because I learned in that moment that I could no longer sit on what I know. And granted, I've had this podcast for 5 years, 6 years. There's a different level that I have been supposed to walk into. And so I remember that moment, right? And I share that with you guys. I ended up sending out to my whole email list about how I ugly cried in Funnel Hacking Live, and this is what I learned. I actually got more responses to that email than any other email I've ever sent out. But the message was that if once you feel that, you guys can't go back. I haven't able to go back since. Once I knew and I heard that, I mean, to me, it came from God, but whatever you guys believe, and we have listeners of all faiths in here, and whatever that is, whatever that intuition is inside of you that says that, like Eileen's saying, if you guys have heard this, that is why I binge everything that Eileen puts out. Because I know she's feeding me to the next level that I'm supposed to be at. That's why I'm so excited about her being here on this show, because I can personally attest to what I learned. And I'm not even in Eileen's paid programs yet. I mean, just the amount of information that I learned. So I share that story with you guys because I want you guys to take a moment and tap into when that was for you. You're sitting here listening to this episode. You already know that you're supposed to be speaking. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it to the end of this episode. This wouldn't be a valuable use of your time. And really hear what Eileen is saying and utilize this framework that you've learned here on this show to move forward and start taking action. And if you're listening and you haven't heard that yet, then maybe it's time to press in, whatever that looks like for you, and get really clear on whether or not this is an action you should take. This isn't for everybody. We're not sitting here saying that everybody needs to be, this amazing world game-changing speaker, but we are saying for those of you who haven't experienced it yet, or aren't sure, or you just feel stuck, you can't move into that place where you know that you should be creating change based on the business that you have, then consider what Eileen is saying to you here. Tap into her ecosystem as we have, and learn from this wisdom because it will serve you well. Yeah,
speaking is just the best feeling in the world, and also will help you give and contribute like you never have. And then you will also be crazy pants shocked at how much business you'll start doing when you decide to take that step forward. That's so good, April. Wow.
It's super good, everything you're saying. I was so excited about this episode.
Yeah.
These 2 episodes now, we're going to break them up for you guys. Okay, so in summary, we have talked about the importance of using your voice to create change and to become known. We've talked about how to tap in, and Eileen has given you the framework to craft your signature story. Holy moly. I mean, this is just amazing that what you guys have received here, and you should see my notes. I actually have front and back pages of notes, and I can't wait to get this out and transcribe this whole show. You have that storytelling framework. And then on top of that, you have the secret sauce that Eileen teaches to her exclusive clients on the I, you, them punchline, and the 3 parts that she dropped for you on how to use quotes from leaders, and then very, very sneakily, in a perfect way, put your little rhyming quote in there. If you're like me, I have 3 teenage boys. I'm gonna give this to them to figure out my rhyme rap for whatever that's gonna be. Or you can go to the website that Eileen mentioned here. I really can't. Words don't even cover my gratitude for you being here on the show and sharing all of this wisdom with our listeners. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so fun.
How can people connect with you and be part of your ecosystem like we are?
Yes, I would love to stay in touch with all of you listening, because I love April and I love her people. I'm sure you are amazing listening to this. So you can go to becomeapaidspeaker.com. You can access a training that I have. I go a little bit deeper in how to make the relationships to get on stages and connect with people who will invite you to even bigger stages, and that training is super high value. And I also, if you want our book, I'll give you our
yes,
free
you
ebook.
want her booked.
You can just find me on Instagram and message. My assistant will deliver it to you. Just be like April Beach. Just message me April Beach, and I'll know. And then my assistant will send you. The book will be so helpful in helping you think through I, you, they, I, you, point, they soundbite. And then keep me in touch. Let me know how you crush it out there.
You can find her at Eileen Wilder on Instagram, guys.
Yes. Sorry, Eileen Wild. My bad, April.
Eileen
Wild on Instagram.
At Eileen Wild. Yes, perfect. Okay, and we'll make sure all those links for you guys are in the show notes. Thank you so much again, my friend.
So
I appreciate
fun.
all of your time. I adore you, and just keep letting them up. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.